All right, lesson 5.3, this is part 2. This is multiplying polynomials. Okay, all right, so a couple things to remember. Just a quick review. I've talked to a few of you already, and I noticed that some different schools teach a couple of different ways to teach this when you're multiplying two polynomials. The way that I typically teach it is the FOIL method. Okay, F stands for multiply the first terms. O stands for the outer terms. I stands for the inner terms. And then L stands for the last terms. Okay, so the first terms in each one would be, let's use different colors here. So we would take the 2 times the x. So 2 times x would give me 2x squared. And then if I multiplied the 2, the outer terms are the ones on the outside. So 2x times 4 would then give me plus 8x. And then if I did, and then I multiply the 3 times the x, I multiply the inner terms, gives me plus 3x. And then I would multiply the 3 times the 4, which gives me 12. Okay? And then my final answer then would be I combine all my like terms, and the only things I can combine are these two. So my final answer would be 2x squared plus 8x. Oops, sorry. 8 plus 3 gives me 11x plus 12. Okay? Now, basically what we're going to do, if you remember back in elementary school when you took, say, 12 times 25, and we had to multiply 5 times 2 gives me 10. 5 times 1 gives me 5. 1 more gives me 6. 2 times 2 is 4. I had to move it over. Some of you may have put a placeholder. And then 2 times 1 gives me 2. And then we add up your, so I got 300. So you can essentially do the same thing here. 2x plus 3. And we're going to take it times x plus 4. Okay, so we're multiplying these. 4 times 3 gives me 12. 4 times 2x would give me 8x. X times 3 gives me 3x. I have to match up my like terms. X times 2x would give me 2x squared. So then my final answer would be 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. Okay? So those are two methods that you can use on how to solve that. You're essentially doing the exact same thing. Okay? All right, so the next example is, all we're going to do is when we're multiplying now a trinomial times a polynomial. Now I find these are easier when you actually just write these vertically. So you write them up and down when you're solving these. So we do negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Make sure you write the sign each time. Negative 3 times negative 2 is going to give me a negative 6x. Negative 3 times x squared gives me a negative 3x squared. Okay? And then we're going to multiply x times 4, which gives me a plus 4x. X times 2 is going to give me a plus 2x squared. And x times x, which is going to give me an x to the third. So add all my like terms up. This is going to give me a negative x squared. This is going to give me a negative 2x. And then I bring down and I get negative 12 as my final answer. Okay? So basically all you're going to do is you're going to multiply each item in here times these two, then take the 2x times each of these, and then the 4 times each of those. Okay? So I could essentially do the same thing if I took x squared times x gives me x to the third. X squared times the negative 3 gives me negative 3x. And then I took 2x. Actually, let's pick a different color. Let's pick purple. Oops. So I take 2x times x, and I get plus 2x. And then I take 2x, oh, that's 2x squared, sorry, times 3, and I get a negative 6x. And then the last one, oops, let's see, let's do orange. 4 times x gives me 4x. And 4 times negative 3 gives me negative 12. So in combining my like terms in my final answer, I get x to the third because I don't have any more. 3x and negative 6x is going to give me negative a negative 3x, a negative 6x plus 4x is going to give me a this should have been a 3x squared, my bad. Because 3x squared times negative 3. So negative 3x squared plus 2x is going to give us a negative x squared. Negative 6x plus 4x is going to give us a negative 2x minus 12. Okay? All right. All right, so whenever you're multiplying, now we got 3 trinomials. Just like when you multiplied 2 times 3 times 5, typically you would multiply the first 2 to get 6 times 5, and that's how you arrived at 30. So we're going to do the same thing on this one, but let's just concentrate on the first 2. So x times 2x would give me 2x squared. X times 3 would give me 3x. And then I take 2 times 2x, which gives me 4x. And 2 times 3, which would give me 6. Okay? So let's go ahead and clean this one up, because we are going to have to eventually multiply that times x minus 1. So I get 2x squared plus 7x plus 6, and we're going to multiply that times x minus 1. Okay? Okay, so now we need to make sure and multiply. We're going to take the 2x squared times each of these. So let's take them one at a time. So 2x squared times x gives me 2x to the third. 2x squared times negative 1 gives me negative 2x squared. Now that I've multiplied the first one times each of these, I can take the second one times each of those. So 7x times x gives me 7x squared. 7x times negative 1 gives me negative 7x. Okay? So follow through. 6 times x is going to give me plus 6x. 6 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 6. Okay? So combine our like terms. 2x to the third. And then negative 2x squared plus 7x squared plus 5x squared. Negative 7 plus 6 is going to give me a negative x. And then a negative 6 on the end. Okay? And that's what our answer is going to look like after we multiply the 3 trinomials. Okay? All right. Last example is, let's say I had a negative 3x plus 1. Now, if you'll remember, and remember if we do 4 squared, all that means is 4 times 4. So there is a shortcut to doing this, but let's take a look at, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at, because this negative's right here, it's a lot better if we do negative 3x plus 1 times negative 3x plus 1. Okay? So, and we're just going to do our same method. Negative 3x times negative 3x gives me negative 9x squared. Negative 3x times 1 gives me a negative 3x. Negative 3x, oh, sorry, 1 times a negative 3x is going to give me a negative 3x. And a 1 times 1 is going to give me a plus 1. Okay, so 9x squared minus 6x plus 1. Now, if you remember the shortcut that we did on perfect square trinomials, particularly when we did completing the square, you can take the square of the first one, so negative 3 squared gives me 9x squared. Square the last one, which gives me the 1. Multiply them together, so I get negative 3x times 1 is negative 3x times 2 gives me negative 6x. Okay? So both methods work. Okay? All right, well, that completes lesson 5.3.